spiritual, too high. But what happened is that by means of having a extra revelation of this level of keter, of God's will, is like when a person gets all of a sudden, no matter how high and all that person gets a brand new idea, he has to tell people about it. He's got to go out, I got an idea, right, no matter how wise he is, no matter how he tries, he feels he has to speak it out. He has to say it to somebody. He has to write it down. It's the same thing with King David. But here we're talking about physically. King David was supposed to be no life at all because it was just too bittul. It was too good for the world. In order for that to come into the world, there had to be this ray of Keter. That's the 70 years that Adam gave to him. That's the 70 years. V'zeu, this is Inyan, Ayin Shanim, 70 years, Shenatan lo Adam Rishon, that Adam Rishon gave to him. Shehem, that they are Bechin at the level of the 7 why 70? Why 70? Why not 10? Why not 100? This is the 7 emotions Sheba Chachma, which are in Chachma, Hakalulim, which are included Me'eser from 10. This is the 7 emotions which are in Chachma. In other words, the nature of Chachma, of that was Adam, what Adam was, which the 7 emotions which are found in Chachma, Hakaluli Me'eser, that each one of these 7 also has 10 inside of it. Shabahem V'al Yadam, that by means of this, by means of these Sfirot, these aspects of Chachma, of Adam, this surrender, this bittul, this negation that Adam had to God, the emotions of this surrender and this negation that Adam had was drawn down. Nimshach Eora was drawn down. Chachma Eloah, this upper wisdom of Adam, this level of bittul, which was so high, it was drawn down into Dibur. Chachma Eloah, of the upper wisdom. V'zeh shekatu, that's what, zeh she'omar, and this is what, you with me, Mr. Smith? Let me have your thing and I'll try to find it for you. Oh, you want this? Here. Oh, good. V'zeh she'omar David Melech alav shalom. This is you? You wrote this? Very good, okay. Here. You weren't here yesterday. And this is what David HaMelech, this is what King David of blessed memory said. He said, what did he say? Aromimcha Hashem, I will praise you, God, ki dilisani, because you dilisani. Now usually the word dilisani means to lift me up. Means to lift me up, but in this case, it's going to mean to bring me down. You'll see. Translated lift me up, but that's not what it means. Here you say, what does it mean, dilisani? The word for a bucket is a dili. Why? Because it lifts up the water, dili. But also there's the word dal, means to go down. A poor person is called a dal. A dal. The word dal also means to go down. It means two opposites. How exactly it fits in, I'll have to ask somebody who knows Hebrew better than I do. But nevertheless, the word dilisani usually means that God lifted me up. But here it says, Rotzal Omar, Reish Lamed, Rotzal Omar, it means to say, Shedala Dala, that he brought down, Eta Dibur, the speech. I'm sorry, I skipped the line. Aramimcha Hashem ki dilisani. I'm sorry. Perush, what does it mean? Al yadei, by means of. Shenimshach, that he was drawn. Mi bechinet, from the level of. Aromimcha, I was elevated, which is, that's the level of keter. That's what we says, this is this aspect of God's will, which is above his wisdom. Because of this extra ray of this shot of God's will, God's keter, his crown, into Havaya, into Yud Kei Vav Kei. What's Yud Kei Vav Kei? Yud Kei Vav Kei is God's wisdom. Yud is God's wisdom. The 4 letters of God's name correspond to the 10 sefirot. We learned that before? Shehu, which is Chachma, Havaya, Yud Kei Vav Kei. That's in general, it's God's name, but specifically, this is the aspect of God's wisdom. By means of Aromimcha, by means of Keter, coming down in Hashem, Al Yedei Zeh, by means of this, Ki Dilisani. What does it mean, Dilisani? That you brought me down into the world. The word Dili also means like to draw out water. So in this case, the water is above, not below. So King David was brought down into the world. He was brought out of God's wisdom into the world. Dilisani, what is it? Lassal Omar? Shedala Dala. That it brought down at a dibur, God's speech, which that's King David. King David is God's speech or God's kingship. Labo, to come. Ela Giloi, to be revealed. Mihalamo, from where it used to be concealed. V'chachma, in God's wisdom. In God's wisdom. L2, to be brought down. Ela Giloi, to the revelation. Me halamo, from being concealed. Chachma, where it was concealed in Chachma. So when is it? King David used to be concealed in God's wisdom, the wisdom of Adam, but he was brought down into the physical world because God gave an extra shot of will, an extra shot. Rotzalomar means to say, Rotzalomar. In other words, Rotzalomar in English means in other words. Okay, so that's, now we understand the 70 years that King David got from Adam. King David represented the speech of God. The speech of God has nothing of its own. Therefore, it couldn't be drawn into the world. And by means of Adam, who was the first man, who saw everything that was going to happen, so Adam all of a sudden rose up in Adam's will, if you want to call it, which is really God's will. It added up Adam's will. I want to give him 70 years of my life. So that's what happened, was there was a shot of the emotions of Adam's wisdom. The 7 emotions which are included in Adam's Chachma came down into the world because there was this big shot of something higher than Chachma, came down into the world, and that was King David. King David had 70 years of life. Why did the fathers have to give him blood? Why did Adam? It says that Abraham also gave him 5 years, and Yaakov gave him 28 years, and Joseph gave him 37 years. Why? Why did they have to give? He already got the 70 years from Adam. Why did he have to have more years? So we're going to see that King David was a little bit more special than what we think. But Hine, behold, Inyan, this whole topic, Hamshachas, of drawing down, HaChachma, this level of Chachma, from Adam Arishon to King David, who is Bechinat, a level of Hamshacha, drawing down, Me Chachma Atzmis, from the essential, from the wisdom of Atzilus, She'eino nogas, that it does not touch the midos to the emotions. This that Adam drew down his wisdom to King David, this is like pure wisdom, how it comes through speech. But a king can't be like that. A human being can't be like that. A human being can't just be wisdom. But that's like, I saw one of these cartoons once of this, of a brain. Not that important, the cartoon, but it was just a brain in a bottle with a few tubes and a mouth attached to a mouth. That was, a professor did an experiment on his co-worker, something like that, and that's what came out. It came out a brain with a mouth. Brain with a mouth. That was it. And the mouth said, What have you done to me, Higgins? What have you done to me? And Higgins gives him a slap to the brain. He gives him a slap. He says, thanks, I needed that. Thanks for calling me down. It was one of these far side. It's a joke, but all of a sudden it's relevant. It's here. A king can't just be a brain and a mouth. A chance can't just be King David got 70 years from Adam. What does it mean? He was able to bring God's wisdom through his mouth. His wisdom what came through his mouth, it was able to give the right orders, the right wisdom. But what would he have orders? He wouldn't have any emotions. He's not a human being. A king, what's the essence of a king? A king is a human being. A king is not an angel, somebody that comes. A king is a human being. King David was a human being. He was a regular human being. Right? That's like the big fault of these other religions. What do they say? That their leader, their God, or whatever they worship, he's somebody holy, he's spiritual, he doesn't get married, he doesn't have this. Everybody, nobody understands him. Right? He's just up in the mountains. He comes through. He has to suffer. He's this. All the same Baba Mises. All of them are the same story. Right? He's very high. He's very up. He's removed from the world. He's trying to tell everybody, get out of the world. We're trying to pull you out, but everybody's too sunk into the world to get out of the world. What was King David? Exactly the opposite. King David's whole thing was to be in the world, to tell everybody, listen, you're in the world. You want to know why you're in the world. The world is a holy place. Take an example from me, right? Adam Arishon was totally holy. He was totally godly. I'm also totally holy. I'm totally godly. You're also totally holy. You're also, God is creating you the same way he's creating me. Just in King David, you could see it. In Adam Arishon, you could see it. You could see. So if so, the purpose of a Jew is not to remove, like you have some of these gurus and these people, that the less emotional they are, the better. Right? I think they have the Scientology and this stuff also. Not to be emotional. You be in control. You're always looking from behind. That's not right. That's wrong. That's making a person into a monster. A person has to have emotions, but you have to have emotions about the right thing. A person has to love every Jew. You have to love the creation. You have to love your fellow man. You have to love God. It's love. You have to be afraid of doing wrong things. You have to be afraid that you hurt somebody else. There has to be emotions. And emotions are very important. The King David was the example of pure emotions. He was the example of what a human being is. That's why King David is the Mashiach. That's why King David is Mashiach. What's Mashiach? Mashiach is going to be a person just like King David who's going to teach everybody why you're in this world, how good this world is. Right? What's the wonder of learning Torah? And what's the wonder of doing a commandment of God? People will feel the miraculousness of every second, every word. That's what Mashiach is going to bring. He's going to fill the world with the knowledge of God. In the end, he's going to explain that the Mashiach is going to be like King David. He's going to be this type of wisdom. Completely different from any of the kings. Even the wisest people in the world are going to need Mashiach. Because the wisest people in the world, they're like the other kings that were after King David. They didn't have this level of godliness that King David had. Mashiach is going to be a person that's going to have all this godliness. But it's not just good enough that he knows what to say. He can write. And also you have to look at him and see that he's a person. How he reacts to other people. How he acts. How he reacts to difficult situations. That's what all the whole book of Tehillim is. King David reacting to his enemies. People hated him for no reason. They wanted to kill him. Can you imagine what a normal person would do like that? Right? He would be like this King Assad, whatever his name is, in Syria. Kill them all. Right? Kill them all. Get your man. Just kill them. Kill the women, the children. Just kill them. I don't want any trouble. Right? What did King David do? He prayed to God, help me, Hashem, to put something in their mind. You take care of me. I can't. What am I going to do? Everybody hates him. The whole kingdom hated King David. They were like Moses with Korach. Right? How would a normal person react to a situation like that? A normal person would say, I'll take my money and put it in a Swiss bank account. I'm getting out of here. Right? I'll go to Spain or someplace. I'll leave. King David would still remain the king, and he remained where he was. And the enemies in the world, he says, I have more enemies than I have hairs on my head, King David. Right? Rabba Misaros Roshi Sonai, the enemies all over the place. A normal person would be broken, he would be angry, he would be something. But these people, no, he's just crying out to God, help, and helps it. So we see that King David's speech was wonderful. The power of King David to come into the world, that there should be King David's brain in his mouth, that came from Adam. But Let's do it again. Hine, behold, inyan hamshachas chachma, the drawing down of God's wisdom. Mi Adam Rishon, from Adam, the David to take King David. It's not King David. Who bechinas hamshachas mi chachma. This comes from the level of chachma. Atzmis, the essence of chachma. She'ein or nogas, that it does not touch into the emotions. Amnam, but yesh od bechinas chachma. There's another type of wisdom. And it is not pure chachma. Not pure surrender to Hashem, but chachma shebemidos. This is the level of surrender which is in the emotions. Now, according to Kabbalah, the emotions are below the intelligence. So Adam gave him the level of intelligence, but the emotions, pure godly emotions, that didn't came from Adam. That didn't come from Adam. Kamo, like Eich liot, how there should be hanhagas hamalucha, how there should be the conduct of the kingdom. Al pi, according to chasadim, according to God, to kindness, the gavuros, and severity. Kamosha Katuv, like it says, Melech, a king, b'mishpat, in severity with judgment, Yamid Oretz, will stand the earth, will stand the world up, will make things firm. In Proverbs. Kaniskra le'el, like we said before, being in David, about David, Chachma, King David was the level of Chachma, of wisdom, b'malchuso, in his kingship. And who's that? This is it. What does it mean? The wisdom in his kingship, in his rulership. King David was not just a good speaker. He didn't just bring the wisdom of God into the world. King David was a king. And a king has to make what we call decisions. Decisions means he has to know when to be strict and when not to be strict. Right? In America they have, in Israel also, the left and the right. What's the left? The left, they make totally different decisions. They have severe restrictions on certain things, and they're very lenient with other things. The left. The right is exactly the opposite. The things that the leftists are very strict about, those are the things they're very lenient about. And the things that the left is very lenient about, they're very strict about. Right? The leftists say the main thing is everybody's free, do what you want, be a free person, you decide your own course in life. You know, the main thing is freedom of the individual. Right? Let everybody come in. The boundaries should be open. People should be free. Nothing. The right says, no way. Close the boundaries. No immigrants. You can't do what you want. We don't want any messing around in this country. Right? No, we got to be strict. Anybody? Right? The left says, no, what we have to be strict is people like these righties. That's what we have to be strict about. Yet we have to not allow anybody to control anybody else. So that's a king, a proper king has to make decisions. And sometimes a king makes the decisions, what he likes, what he doesn't like, what he's strict about, what he's lenient about, and it's against everybody. That's what happened with Moses, right? Moses, everybody didn't like what he said. He said, let's go into the land of Israel. Come on, we're going into the land of Israel. We don't want to do it. We're not going to do it. So, okay, then, let's get the Torah. We'll get the Torah. We don't want it. We want to go back to Egypt. We don't like this, right? Moses finally got them. He brought them out of Egypt and gave them the Torah. They said, we don't want to accept the Torah. You get it for us. We can't. There was always these arguments, right? Moses was always saying one thing, and a king has to know where to be lenient, where to be strict. That's the aspect of what the fathers gave him. Let's just do a couple more lines, and then we'll stop. Gam Kain also, Sorich Liot, there has to be Hamshach is drawing down Atzmius HaChesed, the essence of kindness. You have to draw down pure godly kindness, b'midas malchus, in the aspect of God's kingship, in the kingship and in the rulership of the world. Kamosh Katuv, like it says in David. What does it say, David? Chazde David, and Ne'amani, he brings it from Isaiah, the kindness of King David. Vayhi David, oseh chesed lekal amo. says David, King David, did kindness to all of his people. Shahaya b'chinas hamalucha shelo. Chesdei David, the kindness of David, hane'amanim, which was faithful. So King David did kindness with all of his people. Shahaya b'chinas hamalucha shelo, that it was the level of kingship. His kingship, miyused, is founded al teva hachesed, on the nature of kindness. Lashpia lamo, to give to his people. V'zeu, and this is in the topic of Hey Shanim, of the 5 years, Shenatan lo Avram, that Abraham gave him. She'em Hey Chasadim, these are what's called the 5 kindnesses, and I'll talk about that later. That's like the 5 fingers on your hand. 5 kindnesses. Key, because Avram oya ish chesed, because Avram, his whole thing was love, kindness. Kamosh Katuv, like it says, Hoya machnis orchim. He used to take in guests, umachilam, and feed them, umashkam, and give them to drink. Okay, now the Rebbe is going to ask a question, and we're going to get to this tomorrow, not today. That why did Adam have to take away from his life? Why did these 5 years go away from Adam? This is a spiritual thing we're talking about. Adam didn't, give him his leg or something. He didn't give him his arm. He gave him spiritual life. Why did the 70 years have to be detracted, subtracted, whatever the word is, from Adam? Why is subtracted? We're talking about spiritual things. He gave him life. Right? He didn't give him money. If he gave him money, it would go out of his bank account. Why is it that the 70 years went out of his... Why did Abraham live 5 years less? He was supposed to live on... He gave him 5 years. Why? We're going to talk about this, God willing, tomorrow, and we'll understand what a king is. And finally, in the end of the Maimer, he discusses what the Mashiach is. How the Mashiach is also a different type of a king, like King David, which we'll learn about more, God willing, tomorrow.